Remember when the Demogorgon was not just a Netflix nightmare, but also a terror in the gaming world of Dead by Daylight? Well, those days are gone. For now. In this video, we are diving into the mystery surrounding the sudden disappearance of Stranger Things from Dead by Daylight. We'll explore the thrilling crossover that once was, and the reasons behind its unexpected end. Because we're also going to discuss the burning question on everyone's mind. Will the residents of Hawkins ever return to the fog? So get ready, because we're about to turn your world upside down. When Hawkins met the entity. When the news of the Stranger Things chapter first broke out in September 2020, fans were more excited than 11 at an all-you-can-eat Eggo waffle buffet. The announcement was met with a flurry of comments, with one fan on PC Gamer exclaiming, "But I don't want to see Steve hanging from a hook." Talk about protect the fanbase. The crossover was a match made in horror heaven. Or should I say, horror hell. Dead by Daylight had previously featured iconic franchises like A Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween. So, when the residents of Hawkins, Indiana were set to face against a supernatural predator in the game, it was a perfect blend of two beloved franchises, and it left fans screaming for more. Sometimes literally. But as we all know, this joy was short-lived. In November 2021, the license for Stranger Things was revoked, and the news hit the fanbase like a sledgehammer. Any Netflix post on the social media was soon swarmed with comments from fans, respectfully begging Netflix to reconsider. Many used humor to cope with the pain, making comments like, "This is the upside down of gaming news," or "Guess the Demogorgon got lost in a Hawkins National Laboratory one too many times." Now, the specifics of why the license wasn't renewed are a bit murky. Some speculate that Netflix might have had other plans for the IP, perhaps even their own Stranger Things game. Others suggest that the return on investment for continuing the license wasn't worth it for Behavior Interactive, perhaps due to Netflix asking for a significant amount of money. There is also the probability that Netflix didn't want Behavior Interactive to sell the Stranger Things chapter anymore because the contents were outdated, mostly from season 1 and 2. In the end, chapter 13 was finally removed, leaving a Demogorgon-shaped hole in our hearts. But in the words of Dr. Sam Owens, we never close the door on anything. The characters and their abilities. The Stranger Things chapter in Dead by Daylight was like a love letter to the Netflix series. The Demogorgon, the iconic monster from the show, was introduced as a new killer. And in case you've forgotten, it was just as terrifying as it was in the series. With its gaping, flower-like face and its ability to place portals for fast travel, it was a nightmare to go up against. Let's just say you'd have more luck trying to cook a rat liver. But don't worry, we weren't left defenseless. Nancy Wheeler and Steve Harrington joined the ranks of the survivors. Nancy, the tenacious journalist, with a knack for getting herself into and out of trouble, brought her investigative skills to the game. With her situational awareness, she was the one you wanted on your team when you needed to find that last generator. And then there was Steve, just as reliable and protective in the game as he was in the show. His babysitting skills might not have been directly applicable, but his bravery, determination, and camaraderie were. He was the guy you wanted by your side when the Demogorgon was hot on your trail. The crossover also introduced a new map, the Underground Complex. This was a fan favorite. A faithful recreation of Hawkins National Laboratory from the show, complete with the eerie, dimly lit corridors and the ominous pulsating portal to the upside down. It was like stepping into an episode of Stranger Things, only this time, you couldn't just hide behind a pillow when things got scary. Plus, it was filled with secret references, including the Rift Lab, the interrogation rooms, and even a hidden room that could only be accessed by the nurse, one of the killers. One fan on Twitter summed up the experience perfectly. Playing Dead by Daylight with the Stranger Things crossover is like being in a Stranger Things episode, only this time I can't yell at the characters for making dumb decisions, because I'm the one making them. Updates to the game. In the world of gaming, few things sting more than the loss of beloved content. It's like waking up to find your fridge empty of pizza leftovers. The Stranger Things content in Dead by Daylight, much like that pizza, was gobbled up by the unforgiving jaws of licensing expiration. Those who hadn't already bought the DLC were left staring at an empty plate. The underground complex map also vanished, leaving a gaping hole that no other map could fill. Those lucky gamers who had already purchased the Stranger Things content before the license expired were allowed to keep it. They could continue playing as the Demogorgon, Nancy or Steve, and their gameplay or appearance did not change. But for the new players, or those who hadn't purchased the content before the deadline, they were out of luck. This led to a situation where some gamers had to pay a hefty price to game modifiers to access the Stranger Things content. To avoid copyright issues, the game had to undergo a series of updates. The Stranger Things characters' names and images were altered. For instance, the Demogorgons of the Abyss became From the Depths. And even the Perk logos had to be redesigned. But these changes didn't quite mean the end of the Stranger Things chapter. The Dead by Daylight team reassured players that they would still be able to make bug fixes and balance changes if required. Some found humor in the situation, jokingly referring to the Demogorgon as Discount Demogorgon, or generic brand monster. So while the Stranger Things characters might have different names and logos, their essence remains the same. In the words of one player, it's not about the name or the logo, it's about the gameplay. And as long as I can still play as a Demogorgon and scare the heck out of my friends, I'm happy. Now, isn't that the spirit of Dead by Daylight? Possibility of return. So, will the Upside Down ever return to the entity's realm? Or is it as lost as Barb in Season 1? Well, the answer isn't as clear-cut as we like. Some believe that the Hawkins National Laboratory map's disappearance and the rebranding of Stranger Things perks are signs that the collaboration has come to an end. Others, however, hold on to hope, pointing to the fact that the Stranger Things characters and perks are still playable for those who purchased them before the suspension. Now, let's talk about Stranger Things' current collaborations with other games. The show has been known to make appearances in other popular games like Fortnite and Rocket League, suggesting that the creators are not opposed to such collaborations. But these collaborations are typically timed with the release of a new season of the show. And with the final season of Stranger Things on the horizon, it's uncertain whether they would be interested in reviving the Dead by Daylight collaboration. There's recently been some chatter in the Dead by Daylight community. A YouTube video by Polly Esther discussed the possibility of a return, citing a map leak and changes in the game's code. But these rumors should be taken with a grain of salt, considering the game's developers haven't confirmed anything. In a recent interview, Mike Verdu, vice president of game development at Netflix, hinted at the creation of a definitive Stranger Things game. Whether this means Chapter 13 might return to Dead by Daylight is still as uncertain as Joyce Byers' dating life. Whether we'll see the Upside Down in our favorite horror game again is a mystery that only time will unravel. So we've journeyed through the thrilling crossover of Stranger Things and Dead by Daylight, mourned the loss of the license, and speculated on the chances of a return. It's been a wild ride, just like a game of Dead by Daylight or an episode of Stranger Things. Will our favorite Hawkins residents return to the fog? Well, in the unpredictable world of gaming, never say never.